Good evening. Welcome to this month's Whisky Me Live tasting. It's November 2023. Hope you guys have all received your whiskies and you're ready to roll with the tasting. We have two fantastic whiskies to try this month. From our Scotch I've got the pouch of this one, Aberfeldy 12-year-old. Can't see that at all, of course, because of the weird light in here. And I've got a whole bottle here of Manly Spirits Company's Coastal Stone Nor'easter, which is our world whiskey tonight. If you are new to the format of this, then allow me to explain what's going to happen. We're going to start with our Scotch single malt whiskey, which is Aberfeldy, as I've just explained. We've got India coming in from Aberfeldy to talk about that very shortly. And then at around about 8:15 or 8:20, we're going to move on to Coastal Stone, where we've got David, founder of Manly Spirits, beaming in all the way from Australia, where I'm told it's about 7 o'clock in the morning, which is a pretty early whiskey tasting. So it's worth sticking around to see what that actually looks like, tasting whiskey at 7 o'clock in the morning. Cool. So without further ado, let's bring in India Blanch. Hi, India.
Hiya, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Let's make us a little bit bigger. Or is that too big? No, that's fine. Good to see you. How's things?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Just looking forward to a nice dram of whiskey to warm up a little bit.
Exactly. It's getting colder, isn't it? We were just chatting beforehand, and it sounds like you're at the Aberfeldy distillery tomorrow.
I am. So early morning flight, up to spend a couple of days up in the Highlands. So yeah, can't wait.
Nice. It's sort of a shame we didn't do this tomorrow night, and then we could have spoken to you live from the frosty Highlands, couldn't we?
Yeah, probably good. The Wi-Fi signal up by the locks is not particularly great.
That's very true. So Aberfeldy, now this is actually the second time we've featured this distillery, but the first time was a long time ago. I think 3-4 years ago, back when Whisky Me was a much smaller operation, and we were probably only sending out about 800 pouches. And we did the 16 back then. Actually, you know what? It wasn't. It was even earlier than that, because it was back during the times when we used to go and visit the distilleries and film it. We've actually got drone footage we recorded at the distillery. So anyway, it was a long, long time ago. So the first time I've returned to Aberfeldy for almost 6 years. And it's fantastic to be back, because I think this is just one of the most accessible, almost archetypal single malt Scotch whiskies around. It sort of almost encapsulates the flavour of Scotch, if you want to call it the flavour of Scotch, something generic, in one single bottle for me. Is that kind of your take on it? How do you tend to talk about Aberfeldy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those whiskies that is, I said, it's super approachable. It's kind of light, it's honeyed, it's fruity, but it's still very much got that complexity that appeals to kind of seasoned whiskey drinkers as well. So it's kind of ticks all those boxes. And it's kind of, say, that archetypal flavour of whiskey for you. That's because our distillery is right in the heart of Scotland. So you imagine a map of Scotland, we're like right in the centre. And we've kind of got the beautiful kind of rich Highland style, that citrus, that fruit. But the way our distillery was designed 125 years ago this year, so it's a happy birthday, Aberfeldy, was designed by Charles Doig with the kind of beautiful pagoda roof to create that kind of lighter Speyside style of whiskey. So it's almost kind of the marriage of this kind of Highland style with the modern Speyside style at the time coming in to kind of have that lighter, more delicate style of spirit. So it's, yeah, very much honeyed, fruity, rich, kind of orchard fruits, very easygoing, and just an absolutely delicious dram.
And it was built by the Dewar family, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So when John Dewar kind of passed away, he passed on the business to two of his sons. And at that time, the blend was kind of going from strength to strength from their kind of blending operation in Perth. And they needed their own distillery, really, to be that heart malt of Dewar's, to have enough of this single malt to go into the blend for kind of consistency and quality. So they built the distillery. So they started building in 1896, finished in 1898. And it was kind of, it might look like a picture perfect Victorian old distillery now, but at the time it was kind of the height of modern technology. It was all of the kind of bells and whistles you would want to create this new modern style of spirit. And yeah, bringing Charles Doig down from Speyside to build our distillery, picking the perfect water source. We are on the train lines to be getting everything sent down to Perth. So it is absolutely kind of, shining beacon of modernity of its time. So it's great to see us forging through still.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I've visited a few times, and it is like a biscuit tin kind of whiskey distillery. It's just beautiful old stone buildings and everything. All the warehouses are gorgeous to look at as well. There's really not a kind of ugly part of it that I've seen anyway.
No, we are very, very fortunate. Our other distilleries within the portfolio kind of fell foul to the modern, like tearing them down and rebuilding them for efficiencies in the 60s and 70s. So they also have character, but less of that kind of quintessential Victorian Scottish whisky distillery. So we're very lucky that Aberfeldy has remained kind of as it always has been, really. A couple of tweaks here and there, but still pretty much the same way it's been for 125 years.
Yeah, nice. So with this flavor profile that we get from Aberfeldy, which for me is certainly honeyed, caramel, orchard fruits, a little bit of spice. What do we attribute that to? Is there anything in particular in this sort of production process that you might kind of say, oh, well, that lends itself to this flavor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the flavor for us really starts with fermentation. So ferment for a little longer than kind of average at 72 hours approximately. And any kind of orchard fruits that you're getting with Aberfeldy, kind of the apples, the pears, the kind of those flavors really, really come from this fermentation stage. And then during distillation, it's just very much refining these flavors. So lovely, long, tall stills. We want all that kind of reflux. We want that kind of dance with the copper to kind of create this very beautiful, light, delicate spirit. So the new make is fantastic. It's if you're ever lucky enough to try it up at the distillery, it's almost like an apple eau de vie. It is stunning. And then it's all about kind of maintaining that distillery character during maturation. So Stephanie McLeod is our malt master blender for Dewars as well, and master blender, best master blender in the world for the past 5 years running. So she's fantastic. It makes my job very easy. But she's very much, there's no point in creating this beautiful spirit and killing it with too much of one type of wood. So combination of different cask types for the 12-year-old. So first fill bourbon, first fill sherry, refill and recharge casks kind of coming together to create this beautifully balanced dram that is very much Aberfeldy.
Yeah, nice. And what else should we talk about? Is there anything else to say about production? Is it worm tubs at Aberfeldy or not?
No, Aberfeldy's shell and tube. Craig Ellicky is one of our other distilleries.
Yeah, of course, Craig Ellicky is,
yeah, we do everything the opposite to Craig Ellicky and vice versa. It's quite a fun way to talk about it.
But that's another fantastic whiskey in your stable as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're incredibly lucky to have such an incredible, it's quite a small malt whiskey portfolio, but they're kind of absolute knockouts. And again, it's the skill of the kind of people at the distillery and then everything being sent down to Stephanie and her team just to kind of let these whiskies sing with what they're choosing to kind of mature them in. And all about the finest casks, the finest kind of blend of casks, different finishing processes, and a lot of the whiskies as well. So it's just a really exciting time for all the distilleries, especially kind of Aberfeldy.
Are there any releases coming out that sort of outside of the sort of standard age statement releases? Are you doing anything special with, I don't know, finishing or anything else like that?
Yeah, we've I mean, this year has actually been quite insane. It's been fantastic to see all the kind of new innovation that's been coming out. So we've continued our limited edition wine cask series with Aberfeldy, which started in 2019, each year finishing in different wine casks. This year we've moved away from red wine for the first time and done a 15 finished in Semillon casks from Cadillac. It's like toffee, apricot, it's like super autumnal as well. It's a stunner. And then an 18-year-old finished in Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, so big, juicy raspberry jam, nice bit of tannin on the finish. She's really kind of hit her stride with these finishing casks and making sure that you're not masking the Aberfeldy. It's all about enhancing, kind of adding extra layers on top of what you've already created. And we've just also released, as I said, it's a 125th anniversary this year when the first drop of whiskey came off the still. We've released our 25-year-old, which is if you want to treat someone very special for Christmas. So yeah, finished in Oloroso up to 46%, and it is an absolute belter of a dram. Highly recommend.
What strengths are the other ones you mentioned, all the different cask finishes? They up to 46, are they?
They're 43. So core range with Aberfeldy is 40, the kind of wine cask 43, and then the one we just released is the first one we've released at 46. So it's great. It just means to us as almost an Aberfeldy for anyone, depending on how new you are to whiskey, what kind of flavor profile you like, time of day, time of year, what you're doing is definitely an Aberfeldy that can match that.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have some Aberfeldy 12 because that's all I've got in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, cheers, got nothing else. Aberfeldy branded Glencairn there as well.
Oh yeah, look at that. I just find it so soft. Not to say that it's sort of weak tasting, but it's it just doesn't. It's very accessible.
We kind of really find that kind of, I said earlier, like ticks boxes if maybe people are kind of starting to get into Scotch whiskey, and it's got kind of connotations of being quite kind of big, punchy, kind of sometimes a bit scary for people. And Aberfeldy, that kind of soft sweetness is a really approachable way to get people in. But again, definitely a kind of combination of different cask types during maturation. You're getting kind of bits of flavors from the sherry, from the bourbon, that wisp of smoke almost on the finish from the rechar casks. It's the best of both worlds as accessibility and complexity, I think.
Yeah, good transition from Irish, because it has that softness and sweetness that you associate with Irish whiskey, but there's just perhaps, Irish, of course, the Irish whiskey category has changed a lot recently, but we're looking at your sort of more traditional Irish whiskies. This has a bit more guts to it than that. Do we have any questions? We were talking about this before we started. It was available on the website to buy, and you bought it all, unfortunately. We are now out. I'm not sure if we're getting any more or not, to be honest with you. But we do have pouches of it. What we got here? Never tried Aberfeldy before. Wow, it's great, from Daniel Phillips. And then what we got? More tasting notes. Oakiness hiding behind that sweet hit of honey. Perhaps in a bit of toffee. Yeah, definitely. Do you know what? I've always associated the character of the bit of honey, and just before we came on live, I was nosing it, and I was like, actually, there's a lot of caramel in there as well. Because these things evolve, they're not necessarily the same all the time, because you're always blending different casks and a natural product. But it's started to manifest a little bit as caramel for me, which
I think it's also depending on the time of year drinking. Obviously, kind of this time of year, like toffee apples and kind of that warmth that you get rather than summer fruits with honey. I kind of get different tasting notes depending on, I guess, the time of year you're in as well. And it's so subjective, which is why I love it so much.
Time of year, time of day, everything really, isn't it? It can, you know what it's like. We're going to find out in a minute what David thinks of his whiskey first thing in the morning.
In the summertime.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on. Thanks, India. That was great. You're going to stick around while we talk a little bit about Manly. David, how you doing?
Good stuff. I'm great. It's early morning here, 7 a.m. Sun's out. So whiskey at 7 a.m. I'll let you know how that goes. But here we call them breakfast whiskey, so that's all right.
That's what we call them here as well. I'm jealous of the sun and the fact you're in Australia and the fact that you're in a distillery, for that matter. But it's great to have you on. Thanks for getting up early. I presume getting up early, maybe not.
Anytime.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about Manly. And I mean, it'd be nice also to talk a little bit about the Australian whiskey category, because from way over here, we're seeing kind of great rumblings going on down there. Some really fantastic whiskies coming out, yours included. Award-winning whiskies, of course, but even newer distilleries like yourself are producing really great stuff that seems to have its own identity. So it'd be good to get your take as our Australian correspondent on the category over there, as well as give us a backstory of Manly itself.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, it's interesting listening to India talking about the founders 125 years ago. So here you've got one, go back in time 125 years, and I'm that person, okay? So it's an interesting juxtaposition to Scotland. So Australian whiskey, we're making malt whiskey, yes. So very much that's come from the Scottish tradition, no question at all. My mum's Scottish, my dad's English, so we take that history but we're making Australian whiskies. We're kind of making an Australian version of that. Climate is the biggest part of that. Intensely different. So we have very dry climates and, of course, warmer, but also more temperature fluctuations. So our maturation, which I'm jumping to the end, is entirely different. Our angel shares through the roof, and our ABV climbs. Okay, so it's complete opposite to the most of the maturation conditions, as I understand it, anyway, in Scotland. So one side is the climate. And the other side is cask. So we use American oak as is tradition in Scotland. Ex-bourbon or second fill, first fill, etc. But we're also ex-fortified. So we've got a great wine industry here. So we've got access to we have to call it a Pera cask now. We're not allowed to call it sherry anymore, but or port, Pera and Tawny. But we know what we're talking about. So because we've got a great wine industry, we've got access to all those casks. So by the way, Manly Spirits is our distillery in Sydney. We're known for our gins so far, but our whiskies are Coastal Stone. So all made by us. Yep. But sorry, back to it. So, sustainability of cask, how can you get them? So we've got this great access to ex wine casks in the country. So a big part of our DNA is to use as much as we can these accessible casks. So we'll talk about the Nor'easter in a second, but it's a good fraction of that in its marriage of cask is ex Barossa Valley Shiraz. Barossa Valley is wine from the South Australia. If you don't drink wine, so the big bold Shirazes, kind of peppery casks. They're all anyway. I'll stop talking for a bit. Any questions for me? Otherwise, I'll talk forever.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a good lowdown on, I guess, two of the main factors that differentiate Australian whiskey. I'm interested to learn a little bit more about, and we can get to this maybe towards the end, about the Australian sensibility when it comes to whiskey as well, and how food culture or preferences or drinking styles affect the whiskies that you're blending together and making and blending together. But anyway, let's talk a bit more specifically about Manly. So can you give us the bio of Manly, how you got into it, what you were doing before?
Yes. So we started making whiskey and everything else 2017. So, we've just had our 6th year anniversary, not quite our 125th, but so we're at the other end of things. I designed the distillery. I'm a chemical engineer by trade. So as we're kind of talking about to these guys before we started, I went to Isla and Campbelltown, but some of my favorite whiskies, like Ardbeg, for example, whatever, loads of them. I mean, I came from a peated, even though I'm not making peated now, but went over there, wanted to make a light, fine multi-spirit. So the stills are designed, this is a bit geeky, but the line arms are upward sloping and they're nice and tall, as India was talking about with Aberfeldy. So they're nice and tall. The spirit still's got a boil or onion, whatever you'd like to call it. So, and what we can do in Australia is we're not bound by, I'm not sure if it's law or it's the Scottish Malt Whisky Society, but I've got a reflux condenser in our spirit still, which is kind of lots of copper tubes that you put in the swan neck of the second still, which enables us to dial up or down additional reflux. So that's
you can do that in Scotland, actually. You are
yep.
allowed to. Yeah, there's a few distilleries that have got devices that do things like that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I saw if you go to Ardbeg, they've got a purifier thing. They've got a little kind of pipe which takes it back from before it hits the condenser and drops it back in.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's part of the construction of the stills is that I just reverse engineer stuff but very much Scottish, but upward sloping, light, fine multi spirit.
So all of those kind of engineering considerations, that sounds like what you're trying to do is produce a relatively light style of spirit, correct?
Yeah, I'd call it, like listening to you guys before, there's kind of double distilled classic Scotch style whiskey, and there's Irish at triple. I'd put our new make in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That's not science, but I'd put it in kind of in the middle, you know. We do quite a narrow cut. We actually do 120-hour fermentation, a really long fermentation.
That's long.
So after 72, most of the sugars have gone, but we let it go for an additional 2 days. So we do a really long fermentation. We use some ale yeast, so we get a lot of green apple kind of estery. So part of our flavor profile is the yeast we use. But other than that, it's double pot distilled. We're grain to glass, which is very normal for Scottish distilleries, but not so normal for some startups around the world. Some distilleries buy their wash and then distill it, but we start from Australian malted barley. We use ale malts, which are slightly roasted. They're beer barleys too. So they haven't been bred for high yield. So they're different barleys. They're meant for making beer, which is beer.
So with the in combination with the yeast, you're kind of making drinkable beer then, almost.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit sour. You can drink the wash.
It's a long fermentation, yeah.
But it's a bit sour. But you want those congeners for great whiskey, hey?
Yeah.
What else can I say? The other thing is we're in large, not normal large format casks. So we mature the Nor'easter, which we'll taste in a second, is matured in 200-liter, ex-American oaks, and we actually in hogsheads or 300-liter ex Shiraz or charred wine. So large format. Our spirit, because it's fine and malty and sweet, through all the reasons I talked about, suits a larger format. We don't need to bomb it with oak.
Yeah.
Though, first fill, second fill. So at the moment, we're starting. So they're all first fills. So we don't have much luxury to have the second fill stock there to lengthen things. So, this Nor'easter here is really all first fill. So you're going to get bigger, fruitier, bolder flavors at the moment out of Coastal Stone. And as the years go by, we're refilling our casks. We don't need to rechar them yet. They've already been charred. So we're refilling. So as the years go by, we will start incorporating the seconds in there. So I think, the flavor profile will lengthen and become more subtle over time, I believe.
Do you think you'll have to mature for longer as well? I guess you're still using first fill as well, but do you think a longer maturation will be needed?
Yeah, I think the seconds will take longer, for sure. Absolutely. Ironically, the firsts, they mature too quickly. We have to take them out of cask. So these are the differences. Like you can leave a whiskey in Scotland in there for, 30, you won't have much left, but 30, 40 years. Particularly some of the wine casks, we probably need to take them out at 4 years, maybe double cast them into a second fill American oak and the like. Yeah. So, we're learning
this is, I've got to say, this, I don't know how old the whiskey in this bottle is, but I know it's not more than 6 years old. And this is the complete package. You're not really wanting for any additional maturation on it. If you did, you'd probably lose some of that distillery character. So it's remarkable at that young age, and especially, like you say, using full-size barrels, because you get whiskies of this age. There's a few producers in Scotland putting stuff into small casks and getting some maturation character into their spirits. We featured them at Whisky Me. But in those size casks, in however old it is, 5 years old, it's remarkable.
Yeah, the whiskies are, there's some as young as 3, but the American Oak's 5. The charred wine is at the 3 level, because the charred wines are the casks that really pick up character. I think the American Oak will bear longer for sure, as we all know. But yeah, 3 to 5 years. It's just different. You can't compare. It's, where you might have age statement as the primary thing in a cold, humid climate, you can't quite use that here. I'm not saying old isn't better, but we're going to produce some over oaked, horrible stuff if we leave it in the cask for too long.
Yeah, sure. Can you talk a little bit more about ABV? So, because I'm interested, you mentioned being a dry environment, the ABV in the cask goes up. And we see this in some American whiskies, of course. I don't think, like you say, anywhere in Scotland is that the case because it's too humid.
Yeah.
But what can you tell us what sort of strength the spirit comes off the still, what strength you're putting it in cask, what strength it's coming out of cask, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the hard cut comes off about 73, 74. We break that down to, we initially had the traditional 63.5 cask strength. We said, oh, let's do the same as what everybody does. And then we quickly found, well, after a couple of years, that our ABVs were rising to 67, 68, 69, 70, depending on cask. So we've dropped to 60 now to limit the rise. And I have a feeling we may drop even further as time goes on. But yeah, so 63.5 to 66, 67 is quite typical. Some casks go up 1% a year. Kind of depends on the cask size, etc.
And what do you lose to angel share?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, the accountants don't like it, even though I'm the CFO as well. But we'd lose pretty close to 10% per annum.
Wow.
That's a lot, that depends. Their first casks were matured near the stills, so kind of in the same room as the distillery. Obviously the temperature's going up and down. Some of our newer warehouses, they're packed more tightly and less airflow. So I'd say that will change those conditions. But it is high, yes, the angel share.
But then, it's in some ways advantageous, especially for a startup business where you don't have to sit on stock for 12 years to have a mature product,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's, I guess, a bonus for us. But we, like, one thing about Manly Spirits, we formed a spirits company that makes whiskey, but we made all the other stuff. I love gin too and liqueurs. But what I didn't want to do is be forced financially to launch the whiskey at year 2 because I'm going out of business, if you know what I mean. So we only launch when we think products are ready, and we're lucky with our climate that it gets there. Yeah.
Nice. Well, maybe let's talk, because all the malt whiskies are called Coastal Stone, right?
That's our brand. So it's a different bottle. So it's a whoops. It's like this one at the World Whisky Awards won best whiskey bottle in the world at the World Whisky Awards.
It is amazing. It's beautiful.
We are adjusting our little top here, by the way, but don't worry about that. But
you're going to make it longer? Is that what you're doing?
More pourable, basically.
Yeah, because getting it near the glass is the problem. But
you've got to stick the glass under it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I do is, as long as you're pouring yourself a large measure, it doesn't matter because you just got it right. And then the cap has actually got.
Oh, I forgot to say. So if we're a husband and wife team, by the way. Vanessa's still in bed, I think. We're at our house. We live on an island in Sydney, by the way. Believe me. So I'm not at the distillery. I'll be there in an hour. But anyway, the stopper is actual sandstone. Wow. So that's Sydney sandstone. I'm not joking. Vanessa went to the local stonemason and said, "Can you cut me discs of sandstone?" So she got them cut, for like $5 each, dollars that is. And then I had to work with, a reputable cork supplier to get them incorporated in. So this is okay. So Coastal Stone, if you've ever been to Sydney, we're coast ocean, there's sandstone everywhere, cliffs. So, we're trying to create an Australian coastal persona to our whiskey as well as its flavor. And that's the packaging as such. So the eroding, time, Vanessa could give it to you in spades, but it is a contemporary, unusual looking whiskey bottle.
It's really cool. And that cap is amazing as well, because like you say, you've got the cork bottom, but then this is carved wood, and then the stone set into that. I mean,
yes,
that does. It seems like I don't.
it's
know.
it's crazy financially, but anyway. The whiskey's 46 too. For us, we're non-chill filtered, so we need to keep it up at 46 to stop flock. You know what I'm talking about? Like it still will flock slightly. Like you'll see these have little dancing shadows in there over time. But to me, that's just a mark of leaving all the fatty acids and all the esters, or all those heavy components in. But that's one of the reasons we hold it up at 46 is to minimize the dropping out and hold those flavors in solution.
Cool. I'm gonna pour myself a large measure and taste some.
Me too.
Sitting here drinking anyway. But do you want to? I mean,
yes,
tell us,
yeah. So I'm pretty proud of it. We, by the way, for all the reasons I talked about, we're doing vintage. Can you see 2022 on there? Or is that backwards? Is that backwards? Sorry, I can't.
No. We can see it right. Yeah.
We're doing this with the nor'easter because we're recognizing that the whiskey will meander in its. We're not going to go. It's like a ship, right? You're not going to make the rudder go there, but it will over the years kind of form to a place. As I talked about with second fill casks, potentially the barrels will get some older as well if that works. So it will meander until it gets to that place. So we're kind of sticking a vintage on it each year. Make sense? Yeah. And that's because we've got wine. Our head distiller's a master winemaker. So, winemakers love that sort of stuff too. And I find winemaking skills, like you're lucky enough to have amazing master blenders. We don't have that history and that talent, that pool talent. So we call upon our wine industry professionals, and they do have a lot of common skills that relate to spirits.
Yeah, sure. And again, that goes back to that Australian sensibility. I do wonder if the winemaking culture is is filtering into the whiskey blending as well, right?
Yeah. So nor'easter is a marriage of casks. Like India was describing, Aberfeldy is exactly the same thing. Okay, well, similar. So it's a marriage of first fill American oak, ex-bourbon, and it is still a lot of American oak in here. Mostly, like the wine is matured in ex-American oak as well, but what we also have is an element of French oak. So French oak's interesting. It's spicy and tannic, but that French oak just adds it's about, you're marrying them together to fill your flavor profile up. You want your nose and palate and your finish. You're trying to fill all the elements, to create a finish. We will improve it over the years. We haven't just stuck to a recipe. We won't just hold it. So if we can figure out ways to improve it, we will. Yep.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, for me, I get a sort of peachiness on it. There's like a stone fruit peachiness. There's also orange, some spice in there, like nutmeg or maybe clove.
I mean, we say notes of stone fruits, white peach, apricot, nectarine, Asian pears. There's a floral nature to it. It's a new mate. Whoops, I got you there. Hold on. My screen's just gone funny.
Oh, we can still see you.
Good. But that's from the yeast, really. Kind of. There's a few things. But the kind of estery notes are coming through there. Bit of vanilla and honey. And on the palate, it's kind of creamy. They're richer. Australian whiskies or our whiskies are kind of richer. I think that's to do with first fill. That very high angel share is concentrating things too. That makes, it's kind of all those congeners are in less alcohol, kind of.
Yeah.
And this is definitely like a spice note to it, but it's kind of got chocolate, vanilla, stone fruit. Yeah.
Where's the nor'easter come from?
Well, I wish I could. I won't do it, but so it's the prevalent wind that comes in an evening in our climate. So in summer, and what those really warm days, every evening a nor'easter wind comes in. So it's the prevalent wind along the coast.
Yeah.
Like we've got a jetty out there because we live on our island, so we bash into this blooming thing every evening. So once again, it's a nod to where the whiskey's made, and you'll see other expressions. We'll choose other compass points as well as time goes.
And what's because you've got other expressions within the Coastal Stone as well, haven't you? So do you want to just briefly summarize what they're all about as well?
Yeah. So the nor'easter that you guys are tasting, I'd love to get some feedback shortly.
We'll get it up.
Is our signature. Let's call it our signature single malt. But so far we've really done limited releases. Like a lot. We did an Italian series, Montepulciano.
Oh yeah.
So we did Alanico. You have to be a bit Italian to say Alanico. Sangiovese. So we released those this year. These are like 52% single. There's like single cask releases. We launched doing a port sherry, bourbon, Pinot. What have I missed? One more, Shiraz. So we've been doing our limited kind of expressions to show how our spirit works in different casks. And we will continue to do limited whiskies. We have put some peat down, even though Vanessa doesn't want me to do it, but I love peat. So we've bought some Scottish peat in. We're now recently getting peated malt. I'm talking about. Sorry.
Yeah.
But we've recently, last few years, switched to New Zealand peated malt. So at some stage, we'll do some peated expressions. And I will say that a bit of peat is a secret. It's our secret sauce to it. It really, just a little bit in some of the blends is fantastic. So,
they're peating malt out in Australia. Out in New Zealand, are they? Is there whiskey distilleries using it out there then?
I guess so. I mean, we don't have I haven't actually cruised them all, but I know the maltsters there, have access to peat, so they can,
they can do it if needed.
Yeah.
So nor'easter is the kind of your sort of flagship general release expression, and then everything else around it is kind of limited, one-offs, seasonal.
Oh, look, we'll likely do, because we've laid down a fair bit of sherry. So we'd have, I can't recall, 100, like 100 barriques of sherry sitting there. So we will have larger volume expressions in fortifieds for sure. And we've got the French oak's really interesting.
Yeah.
We've got about 100 of those, and they take time, definitely. So like for the tannins to dissipate. So I reckon they're going to be
hard wood, isn't it? French oak, very hard.
Yeah. And those casks we didn't char. They are toasted. So they're like almost like new French oak, like the winemakers do. They just UV light and kind of make the red layer and all that.
Yeah.
So they'll in like 10 years could be pretty amazing, I think. They'll take.
And are you still going to suffer the same Endra share in those casks, do you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You don't have a lot left, are you, in 10 years?
Look, it's a difficult balance here.
What do we got here? I'm getting a lot of brown, perhaps caramelized sugar, a good companion for the Aberfeldy. Actually, you could end up with baked apples with a sip of both, one after the other. Why not? Red wine cask I love. I'm getting plums, sticky dates, and even hints of baijiu.
Baijiu. Oh my goodness, is this person Chinese? Oh my goodness, baijiu is pretty amazing stuff.
Well, that's one way of describing it. Yeah.
Matured in clay pots.
Yeah. Right. What do we got here? Isn't the internet brilliant? You'll sit here in my lounge in the West Highlands of Scotland, hearing directly in real time from a distiller in Australia.
Exactly.
True.
Yeah. I wish I was in the West Highlands of Scotland. I do. Yeah.
Well, next time you're over, give me in India a shout, and we'll go see some distilleries together.
Love to. Same.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Nor'easter goes great with chocolate too. I mean, do you know what? It was on. We when we sent out our tasting notes, it had chocolate on it. It's on your bottle as well. It says chocolate. So
this is our tasting card. Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
Am I doing it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we kind of pick out pear, chocolate. It's not reversed, is it? No.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Stone fruit.
You can see chocolate, stone fruit, spice. Well, we give these to people, who are newer to whiskey. So one of the questions is kind of the Australian. You asked Tristan, the Australian culture, or what's the scene? Still, everyone drinks Scotch, guys, and bourbon. Oh my God, they've got this great big cohort with this bloody. Have you ever heard of a bogan?
Yeah.
Bogan's chaff. Well, I don't know what you guys call them. But
yeah, it's the Australian equivalent of a chav, I think, is what you.
Yeah, with this, bintang signet from barley, drinking bourbon and cokes. So there's a big cohort that drinks, just Coke and bourbon, which you know what bourbon's like. Just an oak bomb. But Scotch, everyone loves malt whiskies here. They love, I'm sure it's we're a British colonized country. Heaps of Brits here as well. So everyone just drinks Scotch. Okay. So as an Australian distillery, we've got massive competition from wonderful Scotches. So we're needing to make ours to market what Australian whiskey is and how it's different but similar, if you like. That's one thing. The other one is it's still a bit old blokes in Chesterfields, still a bit.
Yeah.
So we're very much about widening the base of whiskey drinkers. Hence the contemporary bottle. We want to get the craft beer drinkers drinking it. And females. This is a bit unusual, but we've launched what you'd call a blended whiskey. Okay, so we call it Explore, and that's to say explore the world of whiskey. So it's a pun, but so it's a 40% malt, 60% wheat grain. So we've launched this one to appeal to people like India was talking about, who don't want a big full-on single malt. So we want. So yes. So we there's a big culture change to occur here. It's happened in gin, by goodness. Yes, we followed you guys, and so Aussies drink Aussie gin now, which is amazing. But it hasn't happened yet in whiskey. So I see great future.
Yeah, totally. It's quite interesting to hear, really, because the whiskey drinking culture over here, malt whiskies are, I think, becoming increasingly popular amongst a certain audience, and they want to explore the world of whiskey. A lot of people aren't necessarily satisfied just with Scotland now. That people are into whiskey, want to try whiskey from all over the world, and we want more Australian whiskey. It's really hard to get hold of in the UK. In fact, you guys and Starwood are really the only kind of readily imported, consistently imported brands that I know of. And there might be a few others, but we just can't get. There's no allocation of stock here. It seems. Tasmanian whiskies you just don't see here at all.
Tassie's, look. The other thing about Australian whiskey, the stuff coming out of Tasmania is low volume. It's quite high price and it's low volume. So that they would struggle to have a lot to export. Look, Starwood, I love those guys. I know the founder well. He's helped us since we started. He's been very generous with his time, Dave Whittaker. Our distillery was modelled slightly on theirs. They're red wine cask people, full stop, pretty much.
Yeah. We've done that. We've featured them on Whiskey Me before, and Dave's been on actually. Right. Yeah,
he's great. So that's their thing. We're red wine too, but not only as part of what we do, because I just love American oak. So as I've got the sweetness, we lost.
I think so.
We lost the whole lot. What do you reckon? No, we're here. Guys, I don't know if we're still here. Yeah,
sorry, guys.
We still use loads of American oak. Because I love that. I don't know if we lost our crowd.
Cool. Let me see. Is there any more questions and comments before we finish up? How much is the whiskey given the price of the stopper? Well, I don't know if you're exaggerating the cost of the stopper, but it's no. But over here, we are selling the whiskey. We've sold out, of course, for $46.95 a bottle. But don't forget, it's a 50 cl bottle. So smaller than usual. And of course, if we had stock, all of our members get 10% off that with their discount code, but we've sold out. So.
Well, just talk to BBB because they've got stock. So.
Yeah, there's other places to get it. There's certainly other places to get it, not just from us. And you should get it because do you know what? I mean, sometimes when bottles are this nice, I'm a little bit like hesitant. Okay, what crimes are you covering up inside the bottle? But that is not the case with this. It is delicious, really, really tasty whiskey.
I didn't know you could cover up crimes in the bottle.
Well, I mean, you've mentioned gin a few times, and I've tried your gins, of course, but certainly there's a lot of gin distilleries out there that are committing crimes and putting them in like desirable-looking bottles.
Right. Yep. Gotcha.
But cool. What else we got here? Not sure the power suggestion from the Whiskey Me card in front of me, but definitely getting plums. That'll be that red wine cask, no doubt. It's stone fruits, definitely big on it.
Yeah.
Definitely very rich, quite the breakfast dram to start your day.
Yep. It's probably 7:30 now, so that's all right.
That's a good question. How's Bladnoch going down in Australia? Because, of course, Bladnoch has an Australian owner, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? He used to own a yogurt company, I think. David Pryor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's a yogurt guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't noticed. I mean, it's here. I'm probably not the best person to ask that. I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
They've rebranded, haven't they? They're different bottles and the like. They're certainly present when we go to all the Whiskey Lives. They're there marketing as well. So hopefully they're going well because it's good that. Yeah. Didn't he resurrect that distillery?
Basically, yeah. It was down and out, and he spent a lot of money on it. I don't remember how much, but it was like
money pits.
Lots of money, millions and millions. Cool. Great. I think that's it. Great tasting, great whiskey. Let's leave it on that.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, guys. And India, enjoy your trip to Aberfeldy. You're both off to distilleries. I'm going to stay here and just drink more whiskey. But thanks so much. And David, appreciate you getting up early and doing this for us as well.
Thanks, Tristan. Nice to meet you, India, as well.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks so much.
And thanks all for listening. All right.